All right, welcome back. We're diving right back into Capital Redefined, and this time we're hitting the first part of Chapter 6. Now, this is where the authors really start to tackle the huge questions about labor, especially now, in the age of smart machines. They're going to use that communist framework we've touched on before. I mean, think about it. What is value when an AI gets involved? The old rulebook is pretty much getting thrown out the window, and we're going to explore the book's really interesting new take on all of it.
Yeah, just take a second and really think about that. If an AI writes a smash hit, who gets the credit? The programmer who wrote the code, all the people who created the data it learned from, or maybe the machine itself? I mean, this one question cuts right to the heart of the whole problem, right? And it shows you exactly why the old economic theories are, well, kind of struggling to keep up.
Okay, so to really get into this, we need to set the stage a little. For more than a century, one of the main ideas out there has been the labor theory of value, or LTV for short. It's pretty simple, really. The idea is that the value of a thing, say a chair or a car, is basically determined by how much human work, how much labor time went into making it. It was, a pretty straightforward way to measure economic value.
But, and this is a big but, that simple ruler is now up against some incredibly complex new realities. I mean, the digital age has totally flipped the script on how we work, how we create things, how we produce anything. And it's putting that whole classical theory on trial, big time.
I mean, just look at the challenges we're facing. You've got automation replacing human workers left and right. You have software and data that can be copied 1,000,000 times for basically zero cost. Then there's the whole gig economy, which completely blows up the old 9-to-5 model. And on top of all that, you have massive profits being made from things like rent and finance that seem totally disconnected from making stuff. So the question is, how on earth do you measure any of this in simple labor hours? It just doesn't seem to fit anymore.
So with all this confusion, what happens? Well, you get two major camps, two big schools of thought that have popped up to try and make sense of this new world. And really, this has become the great value debate of our time.
So on one side, you've got a group we can call the rejectionists, and their take is pretty straightforward. The labor theory of value is obsolete. It's a relic, we just need to throw it out completely. But then, on the other side, you've got the revisionists, and they're saying, whoa, not so fast. The basic idea is still good, we just need to update it. Reinterpret it for this new digital world.
And this quote here from Negri and Hart, it just perfectly nails the rejectionist point of view. What they're saying is, look, when you're talking about things you can't touch, ideas, data, creativity, what they call immaterial production, that old factory punch clock just doesn't work anymore. You can't measure this stuff in time. But the revisionists, they fire right back with a really crucial point. They argue that, okay, sure, machines and data can move existing value around. They can transfer it. But only living, breathing people, human labor, can actually add brand new value to the economy. Now that value might get created over here and then show up as profit way over there. But if you trace it back, its source is always, always human.
Okay, and this is where the book we're looking at, Capital Redefined, makes its big move. The authors step in and basically say, look, both the rejectionists and the revisionists are kind of missing the point. They argue there's a much deeper, more fundamental process going on that both sides are overlooking, and they offer a third way to see the whole problem.
So what is this new lens? Well, they call it a communist framework. And the whole idea behind it is to uncover the hidden logic of how capital really works, not just in the factory or the office, but across all of society.
Now, to really get their idea, we first have to understand something they call secondary abstraction. And honestly, this is the process we're all pretty familiar with, right? It's where capital takes your specific, concrete skills, everything you can do, and boils it down into an abstract number, your hourly wage. Your work becomes a commodity that can be bought and sold. This is what we think of as value creation inside a normal job.
But then, and this is the book's huge new idea, they introduce primary abstraction. The argument here is that way before your work ever gets a price tag as a wage, capital is already taking value from this massive shared pool of creativity. Think about it. It's grabbing value from our social networks, from our collective knowledge like open source code, even from nature itself. All of this stuff, this commons, exists outside of any formal job, and they're saying capital is tapping into it first. Okay, so that's the theory. Let's see how it actually works with a real-world example. We're going to look at automation, but not just as a way to replace workers. We're going to look at it through this new communist lens. And when you look at it this way, the purpose of automation suddenly looks very different. It's not just about being more efficient. It's actually a tool for control. First, it de-skills labor. It turns skilled workers into simple operators.
Second, it takes away their autonomy, their control over their own work. And third, it creates this really powerful illusion that the machines are the ones creating the value, while the human workers, they're just a cost on a spreadsheet that needs to be cut.
So what's the end game here? The ultimate goal is to completely reshape the whole world of work into capital's own image, to force it to follow one simple core logic: endless growth. And in the process, human creativity and purpose kind of get pushed out of the picture.
All right, let's take this same framework and apply it to another puzzle of the modern world, the gig economy. So, is it really this new wave of entrepreneurial freedom, or is there something else going on underneath?
And this table here really lays it out. The traditional view, it sees a bunch of independent freelancers just using a neutral piece of technology. Simple. But the commonist view, it tells a totally different story. It sees a worker's creative power being captured, that's the primary abstraction, before they even get paid, while the platform itself is just extracting rent from their labor. So in this view, it's not creating some brand new economy. It's just finding a new way to fence off and privatize our ability to work for ourselves.
So what this means is that all this talk about techno-feudalism might be a little off the mark. According to this framework, we aren't seeing the end of capitalism or some brand new system. No, what we're actually seeing is its oldest trick in the book: appropriating shared value, just dressed up in a new, high-tech costume. And that really brings us to the core, the central argument of the book. The history of capital, they say, isn't really just about factories and wages. It's the much longer history of finding new ways to decommonize, to fence off, privatize, and profit from our shared sources of value. It started with land, and now it's moved on to our digital lives, our collective creativity, and our shared knowledge.
And that leaves us with a really big, really important question for all of us. If our collective creativity, the value we all generate together, is the new frontier for capital, the new raw material, then how do we protect it? How do we start to reclaim it as a commons that belongs to everyone? That's definitely something to chew on. Thanks for joining me.